easily stoked by foreign occupation or invasion. We've helped further fundamentalism and made decisions which placed in positions of power those whose very existence supposedly drove us to the conflict in the first place. What passes for our recent history is an acculturated, sleep-inducing lie from which we must wake up. We must awake from the stupor of our self-imposed amnesia or shock. We must shake off the awe which comes from the misuse of power on a global basis. We must always question governments whose legitimacy rests not upon accountability and truth, but upon force and deception. A government which assumes that we are neither intelligent enough nor loyal enough to know the truth about its actions a dozen years ago, or for that matter, a dozen days ago, is not worthy of a free people. We must bend the fear-forged bars which imprison the truth. We must seek the truth, and we must know the truth, for it is the truth that truly will set us free and lead to the wisdom which can rescue us from destruction, the wisdom that can reclaim America. 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 The mere utterance of the word America should set the pulse pounding with the excitement of discovery, of possibility, of love, not fear. The time has come for us to demand that our nation, America, establish and fully empower a commission on truth and reconciliation so that those who are responsible for misleading us into the annihilation of the innocent people in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and elsewhere be brought forward to a public accountability in a formal process of fact-finding, of inquiry, of public testimony, of admission, of confession. This is a process that has worked in other countries, notably South Africa. Frankly, there is no other way out of this moral cul-de-sac in which resides the monstrous crimes of mass murder, torture, kidnapping, rendition, other than to have an atonement, an at-one-ment. It is in at-one-ment, atonement, that we will achieve what Blake called the unity of opposites. It is in reconciliation that the Blakean idea of the contrary nature of God, containing multitudes of humanity, causes us to understand the fragility of our social compact and the possibility that any one of us could be murderers or victims. Lacking public expiation over the unbridled use of force, the wanton violence we have writ large across the world will replicate. It will perpetuate, and it will be our ruin. This is the importance of a formal process of truth and reconciliation. Now, we had and we have a right to defend ourselves as a nation. But we were taken on the offense. And the violence that we visited abroad will inevitably blow back home. The violence we create in the world in turn licenses and desensitizes the display of wanton violence which is exercised in our streets and unfortunately in our homes. We have to understand the causal links. what is outermost presses down upon what is innermost, and what is innermost becomes outermost. Once a full process of truth and reconciliation helps us to discern the truth of our experience in the past decade, equipped with the truth of our errant descent into errant wars, we must be prepared to forgive those who would be forgiven, and forgive ourselves for having participated with either our assent or our silence. Then we may move forward with truth as the standard under which we organize a stronger and better America. We must think often of our nation, reimagine it, reestablish it as the exemplification of our highest ideals. Think of those lofty sentiments present at the founding of our nation, of its spiritual origins. One motto, the Latin words, Annuit Ceptus. He has favored our undertaking, an illusion to the guidance of providence. Think of the transcendent purpose in the founding of America, United States, presaging human unity. Our first motto, E pluribus unum, Latin, out of many, one. The paradox of multiplicity in singularity. What extraordinary faith, courage, and spirit was present at the founding of this country. Let us renew our faith in our nation. Let us unite so that the power of unity will lift this nation we love. Let us declare our faith again in each other, as it occurred so many years ago with that clarion call for the right, we the people. Let us find that place where the capacity, find that place in ourselves where the capacity to evolve catalyzes the evolving character of America, where through the highest expression of informed citizenship, we quicken the highest expression of informed nationhood. America, America for Americans, America for the world. Let the truth be our empire, the plowshare our sword, nature our textbook, and let us once again celebrate the deeper meaning of what it means to be an American. Then, reimagining the town hall model, that model where people get together and they talk about things that concern them. Let us consider what America represented to each of us on the day before 9/11, on September 10th, 2001. Let millions of people in tens of thousands of places across our nation meet, rediscover, and celebrate our nation and its purpose, and recapture the spirit of America, which we know already resides in countless places. The spirit of America is always ready to be called forward with a sense of wonder and joy, which our children will in time come to understand as our capacity to rise from the ashes of our own suffering and disillusionment a quality which becomes their civic inheritance. Well, we were founded with the idea of striving for perfection. We were not a perfect nation by any means before 9/11. But I remember a greater sense of optimism, a greater sense of freedom, of security, of control of our destiny. We need to come together now in town halls across America to appreciate our common experiences, to share our narratives about what's best in our nation, about what we love about this country, about our own journeys and those experiences in our own lives which connect us to the possibilities which underpin that dream that we can call America. To share with each other those things in our lives that directly connect us to what we call the American dream. And when we come together in that way, when we so share, we will know each other better and have even more love for our country. Violence of today has cast us into a psychological wilderness. There is a path out of the wilderness of violence in which so many of our fellow countrymen and countrywomen are lost. If we are to help them find that path, it would be helpful for us to look again at the origins of our nation and find the map. July 4th, 1776. The Second Continental Congress unanimously declared the independence of 13 colonies, and the achievement of peace was recognized as one of the highest duties of the new organization of free and independent states. Peace at the founding. Yes, the paradox of Revolutionary War, but the destination was peace, articulated and enshrined. The drafters of the Declaration of Independence appealed to the supreme judge of the world and derived the creative cause of nationhood from the laws of nature and the entitlements of nature's God, celebrating the unity of human thought, natural law, and spiritual causation in declaring, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The architects of independence, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, spoke to the activity of a higher power which moves to guide the nation's fortunes and lends its divine spark to infuse principle into the structure of democratic governance. The Constitution of the United States, in its preamble, further sets forth the assurance of the cause of peace in stating, "We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity." We must remember where we have been so we can chart to where we will proceed. It is the sacred duty of the people of the United States to receive the living truths of our founding documents and to think anew, to develop institutions which permit the unfolding of the highest moral principles in the nation and around the world. Some of these words that I just shared with you are from the preamble of legislation that I wrote in 2001. They form the basis of my understanding of the conceptive power of freedom. The founders of this country gave America a vision for the ages and provided people with a document that gave this nation the ability to adapt to an undreamed of future. What can we give back? When I first came to Congress, I saw how easily we slipped into conflict. I saw how normally placid representatives could get swept up by war fever. It led me to study war. I learned that during the course of the 20th century, more than 100 million people perished in war, most of them innocent non-combatants. And here today, violence is the overarching theme of our time, encompassing personal, group, national, and international conflict, extending to the production of nuclear, biological, chemical weapons of mass destruction, which have been developed for use on land, air, sea, and space. Such conflict is taken as a reflection of the human condition without questioning whether or not the structures of thought, word, and deed, which we have inherited, are any longer sufficient for the maintenance, growth, and survival of our nation and the world. Personal violence in the United States has great human and financial costs, costing hundreds of billions of dollars annually, not including war-related costs. Child abuse and neglect costs over $100 billion annually. But we are still relatively at the beginning of a new millennium, and the time has come to review age-old challenges with new thinking, wherein we can conceive of peace as not simply being the absence of violence, but the active presence of the capacity for a higher evolution of human awareness, of respect, trust, integrity, where we all may tap the infinite capabilities of humanity to transform consciousness and conditions which impel or compel violence as a personal group, at a personal group or national level. We do this towards developing a new understanding of and commitment to compassion and love in order to create a shining city on a hill, the light, which is the light of nations. It was this thinking, this articulation, which I was privileged to bring forth on July the 11th, 2001, fully 2 months before 9/11, to introduce a bill, H.R. 808, to create a cabinet-level Department of Peace, soon to be reintroduced by Congresswoman Barbara Lee as the Department of Peace building. Imagine coming from a position of love for our country and for each other, if we move forward without judgment to meet the promise of a more perfect union by meeting the challenge of violence in our homes, our streets, our schools, our places of work and worship, to meet the challenge of violence in our society through the creation of a new structure which can directly address domestic violence, spousal abuse, child abuse, violence in the schools, gang violence, gun violence, racial violence, violence against gays. This goes much deeper than legislation which forbids certain conduct. It goes much deeper than creating systems to deal with and to help victims. Those things are necessary, but they're not sufficient. We need to go deeper if we are, at last, to to shed the yoke of violence which we carry through our daily lives. And so then we speak of creating a structure where all across this country we tap the creative energies of those who have committed themselves, the sociologists, the psychologists, the counselors, who commit themselves to help people through their daily lives. Across the country, we begin to transform our educational system, to teach children peace-giving, peace-sharing, mutuality, to look at the other person as an aspect of oneself. We know violence is a learned response. So is non-violence. We must replace a culture of violence with a culture of peace. Not through the antithetical use of force, not through endless thou shalt nots, and not through mere punishment, but through tapping our higher potential to teach principles of peace building and peace sharing, and to teach them at the earliest ages as part of a civic education in a democratic society. Carl Rogers, the humanistic psychologist, has written, and I quote, "The behavior of the human organism may be determined by the external influences to which it has been exposed, but it may also be determined by the creative and integrative insight of the organism itself." We are not victims of the world we see. We become victims of the way we see the world. If we are prepared to confidently call forth a new America, if we have the courage to not simply re-describe America, but to reclaim it, we will once again fall in love with the light which so many years ago shined through the darkness of human existence to announce the birth of a new nation. Out in the void, I can see a soaring sun splitting the darkness. Behold, the dawn of a new nation, our beloved America. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate that. And we're going to go to questions.